Nice.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome in, everybody. Well, we'll give it a couple more minutes for everyone to drop in. What a blessing to see you. If you are so inclined, you can jump into the chat. Click over to everyone at the bottom of the chat stream where it says host and panelists. Go to everyone and then tell us where you are. And give us one word to describe your state right now. Everything is on the table. Tell us how you're doing. Callie. Sarah is joyful. Amazing. Frozen. Yep. Overwhelmed. That's what I was hoping for, the truth. Thank you. Drifting. Arkansas. Stressed. Catalina, Minneapolis. Anxious. Watching. Tired. Curious. A little stressed. Freezing. Stressed. Look at this. There's another Elena in Santa Fe right now. That wasn't me. I just want to say. That's cool. Brooklyn, ho. Arizona energized. iPhone is overwhelmed. Jasmine, New Orleans has already commented. Thank you. Nice. Rohit. Beautiful. Stressed, tired. Tracy in Melbourne, feeling on edge. Northern Virginia is cold for Neil. MD is Quebec. J'imagine il fait froid. Cami is so very tired. Chicago right now feels okay. Deep Paola. Beautiful. Dana is in the Bay Area and she's exhausted. I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. This is the perfect medicine. Lindsay, I know we have some announcements to make, so if you want to put those up on the screen, and I can make those prior to introducing Sarah. Wonderful. We have a few quick notes. This is a view only session, so your cameras and mics are actually turned off by us. It's different than most other sessions. This is really just to keep the space calm and focused and easeful for you. You're warmly invited to share your questions in the chat at any time. I will be monitoring personally. And during the last 10 to 15 minutes here, we will select and read some of your questions for Sarah to respond to live. And just thank you so much for being here. Thank you for keeping the chat a supportive space and a kind space for all of us. Thank you so much. Oui, froid. Love it. Sarah and I just need you to know, dear viewer, we have known each other for some crazy number of decades. She has just recently celebrated her 30-year teaching anniversary. She was one of my first inspirations. She teaches sleep and yoga for stress management at Stanford University. You are with a scholar right now. Her dissertation, titled In Search of Sleep, a comprehensive study of yoga philosophy, therapeutic practice, and improving sleep in higher education. Wow, where were you when I was in college, my sister? I did not. I remember distinctly taking pills so that I would stay up all night. Those no dose pills.
Yes.
I mean, her studies have included a 3-year clinical study embedded within her academic course, Sleep for Peak Performance. She served as the yoga spokesperson for Weight Watchers Yoga for Dummies, Crunch Yoga, and she co-created Just Breathe, a yoga breathwork meditation initiative in partnership with Oprah Magazine. Not nothing. She's the founding director emeritus of Yoga USC at the University of Southern California, where she co-developed a 200-hour yoga teacher training aligned with university standards. And she will celebrate her 10-year anniversary as content advisor for Glow this year. When she came on, I was so excited. If you don't happen to know this, there is archaeological evidence of our first collaboration. And it may have had to do with hip hop and yoga in tandem. Sarah, welcome to this wonderful session. I'm so looking forward to it that I am here completely voluntarily just because I love you and I want to learn. So thank you.
Yeah, Elena, thank you so much for offering to hold the space this evening. Um, it's we've shared a lot over the years, so I appreciate you stepping in.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I have a slide presentation I'm going to share with all of you tonight to give you a little bit of a taste of the way I teach the university courses. Um, but before I do, I'd like to just take a moment to just share. Personally, I developed an extremely severe sleep disorder when I was a toddler, maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. And it's something that I struggled with for my entire lifetime. I would go a full night without being able to sleep, 2 nights without sleep. I'd go 3 nights in a row without sleep. My maximum has been almost 4 nights in a row without sleep. I was almost hospitalized for that. And this was, I had a very happy childhood. This wasn't, this was just something that was came to me at an early age, and I didn't understand what was going on. It went undiagnosed for years. I didn't understand the implications of it. I didn't understand the implications of that sleep deprivation as my brain was growing and developing into an adult, the implications of that on hormones and psychological patterns, etc. But when I was in you were just talking about college. When I was at NYU undergraduate, that's when I started to have some awareness of what the challenge was, and I started to seek support for it. And that was when I had already done some yoga and meditation, etc. But that was when I really dove into these practices to seek support for myself. And it's been it's been a real treat to watch the sort of explosion of the popularization of yoga uh, in our culture over the last 30 years. And yoga has taken many forms, and it's been fun to play in those different sandboxes. Um, but I have, let's see, oh, here we go. Okay. Um, but most of my journey has been using these practices to help myself, and over time teaching those to others to sort of see what of it would be helpful to them. Um, Sleep is a really complex, um, it's a really complex area that we really don't fully understand. There is some research that we have some touch points on, and I'm going to talk about that tonight. But if you're here because you struggle with sleep, um, I don't want to ever oversell anything, make any promises. There is no one quick fix to curing a sleep disorder. But there are techniques and tools that can be helpful along the way. So I'm going to dive into a little bit of that now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. I'm going to try to share my screen with you. Let's see here. Oh boy, that's messy. Here we go. How about that? Okay, can you see okay? Okay, wonderful. So I usually, when I give my talks, I do slides. As Elena mentioned, I'm usually speaking to university undergraduates, and these slides help them take notes for the classes and for the papers and tests and stuff like that. So tonight we're talking about sleep, stress, and women's health. I want to start a little bit talking about the hormones that are involved in initiation of sleep. And it's important to understand that sleep is hormonally very complex and that we really don't understand it um, fully at all. There are a few hormones that we have heard about if you've been looking at social media, if you've been looking at, wellness blogs or listening to wellness podcasts. Most of you have heard about melatonin. Many of you maybe even taken melatonin supplements, etc. Melatonin is essential. But melatonin signals to the body when it is time to sleep. It doesn't necessarily make you sleepy or give you a deep sleep or do many other things that need to happen with sleep. It's mostly a it's mostly like an alarm clock. It's mostly telling you when the sleep happens. So we're going to actually dive into that later. Something we won't have time to talk about too much tonight, but I'm very interested in is adenosine, which is responsible for sleep pressure and how deeply we sleep, what your sleep quality is. The role of GABA cannot be overemphasized, which is just it's sort of like I call it like the circuit breaker. GABA just is a general shutdown for your brain. Any pharmaceuticals that you take for sleep, almost all of them, not all of them, but almost all of them are GABA based. They just sort of do a general shutdown of the brain, just everything locks. Acetylcholine is essential, and there's many others, and it would take hours to explain all of that. But I want to just start by offering that hormones in the body for sleep are very complex, and it involves coordinated signaling. Um, Many of you who are on this call tonight have enough awareness about health and sleep that you're aware of what stress hormones are. So I'm not going to sort of go over too much that you already know. I'm just going to touch on the basics to sort of make a strategic progression of points. Stress hormones drive survival physiology. Most of us know about cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, known as we call it adrenaline, or my adrenals are shot, etc. There are others. Again, this is a whole other conversation that we could dive into at some point. But the core principle I want to make is that stress hormones are designed to override all other hormonal signals. So you may have a perfectly operating melatonin. It may tell you it's time to sleep at the right, okay, it's 11:30, it's time to go to bed, or it's 10:30, it's time to sleep. Stress hormones are designed and created to override all other signals in the body. Stress hormones will shut down our digestion. They change everything, and they're designed so that we can do this sort of. You guys have all heard this for evolution. We need to sort of run away from the saber-toothed tiger, and we need like a burst of strength to be able to survive something. So these stress hormones, if they are working for you, it's a sign that your ancestors were strong. This is a very good signal. It's the survival mechanisms that are built into the body. So if you have stress hormones that are running rampant, rather than beating yourself up for that, give a moment of thanks to your ancestors that they have these functions that were working that got passed on to you. The challenge is, of course, that these stress hormones override the sleep hormones when we're wanting to sleep, and we're going to get into that in a moment. I want to talk a little bit about the sleep stress cycle. The sleep stress cycle sounds bad. This is like a kind of a negative feedback loop. And I'm going to sort of start with the doom and gloom news, and then we'll move on to potential solutions in a moment. When we have had difficulty sleeping, our nervous system is incredibly raw. When we sleep, sleep acts almost like a balm to coat the nerves, to soothe our raw emotions, process emotions. It helps to organize our memories. It sort of does all of the things that we need to do to be able to show up calm and refreshed. And if we haven't slept, we often won't show up as tired. When we haven't slept, usually we show up as manic, like just completely agitated, because that which was meant to kind of soothe and process hasn't happened. when we have that sort of increased reactivity, I always said so many mornings I had to face a day when I hadn't slept. I would say I feel like my skin's been sanded off, and everything has just been just hits these raw nerves. And many of us who have done any kind of a mindfulness practice, awareness of our senses, awareness of what we hear, of what we're smelling, of what we're seeing, of what we feel, would notice that all of those senses get way heightened when we haven't slept, and it feels so that every moment of engaging those senses, it feels like a jolt. And the problem is, then that jolt on our senses creates stress hormone reaction to it because we don't have that resilience. So when we're sleep deprived, we are more sensitive to the onslaught of overstimulation. Our stress hormones are more apt to react all throughout the day. And when our stress hormones react throughout the day, even if we had something stressful like at the end of a work day, or you go to pick up your kids, or you had some, like a challenge, you fight with your family at dinner or something like this, those stress hormones release, and they don't just magically go away. They take time to exit the body. And not only do the stress hormones take time to exit the body, the stress hormones create repercussive muscle tension, jaw clenching, shoulders, biting the nails, all this type of thing. And those repercussive patterns take additional time to unwind. So very often we'll be then stressed out from it, and those stress hormones will once again override our sleep signals coming in. And so this can go on and on and on and create what's called the sleep stress cycle. It's incredibly frustrating for people who are having trouble sleeping. And somebody says to them, oh, well, if you just build up enough sleep pressure, you will become tired enough and then you will fall asleep. That's a hypothesis. And sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's not. In fact, the worse it gets, the worse it can get. So if you are in one of these negative feedback loops, I'm not saying this to scare anyone. I'm saying it to validate your experience. If this is what you've been trapped in, and then on top of it, you're beating yourself up. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I handle my stress hormones? Why can't I sleep? I'm failing at sleeping, like this kind of thing over and over again. I just want to validate the experience. It's very common. You're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what we can do about that. Before we do, I want to just add one more layer to this. So hopefully there's some people who are watching here tonight who are not women or not interested in women's health. Now, all humans have these same stress hormones, and we all have the same sleep hormones. So the sleep stress cycle works for men and women. It already can make sleep difficult. But for women, we have an additional added complexity to that which is already complex, which are these hormonal fluctuations, which interact with sleep and stress hormones. They can create greater sensitivity to the stimulation that's coming in to us from the outside, from the news or from the family or from your work, whatever these stressors are. And then that heightened reactivity, again, makes it more difficult for us to slow down at night. And then we don't have the sleep that we need in order to integrate and to be able to heal at night and show up the next morning. Women have hormonal fluctuations that can really disrupt sleep, can disrupt energy. There's a lot of research being done that is beginning to understand how all of this works, but I mostly want to validate that if you are in a stage where you're experiencing hormonal fluctuations and they are disrupting your sleep, to first of all just really validate your experience And we're going to start to find some tools that can be helpful to this. But it is important to know, once again, that if you've seen something on social media that says, oh, do this one thing and you'll be able to sleep, and you do it and you're not able to, that's because there's a lot that's going on in our systems. A lot of the sleep advice that we see on social media or that we read in, magazines on well-being, or even for any of you reading, some of the peer-reviewed research, a lot of times the sleep advice that we hear is a little bit too simplistic. A lot of what I hear repeated, I'm really excited that people are starting to understand circadian rhythm, our body's clock. Um, People are starting to understand that sunlight in the morning can help set the clock. So just briefly, for those of you who have heard that, I want to just explain how that happens. Just from a physiological perspective, the moment we open our eyes, light comes in through the eye, goes in through the retina, it hits an area of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that area, it's almost like starts the clock, and it immediately suppresses the melatonin. It pushes it down. It goes, and the idea is that the more of that you do, and the earlier of that you do, it's going to create a bounce. So if you push the melatonin down with the sunlight like this, by the end of the day, it'll go boing, and then hopefully you'll get a nice shot of it later in the day. That's why the morning sunlight is really helpful. That melatonin tells you when to fall asleep. Many of us have also heard about reducing our exposure to devices in the evening because of the blue light that comes into the eyes. So yes, to validate that as well. Same thing, what's happening is we shine something into our face. By the way, there's no long-term studies on the effect of these devices on our eyes because they're too new. So who knows what we're going to be finding out in the future, but the blue light comes into our eyes and it almost creates a false sun. So in the evening, when things are starting to get dark, you see it's gotten dark here while I'm talking, we're supposed to be, the light's supposed to be changing into these golden hues of evening and sending signals to the brain. But when we give a shot of light into the eyes, the eyes are reacting just like it's morning sunlight, and the melatonin gets pushed down again rather than released. So that's what we're hoping to happen there. However, it's really essential to understand that melatonin is only one of many mechanisms going on in the brain. For years, I thought that must have been my trouble with sleep. So I actually went and did a study where I got my melatonin levels tested on the hour for a 24-hour cycle. It was a really brutal test. I have to do this stuff with these lights and this. Anyway, but it was interesting. I had assumed there was something that was just dysfunctional about my basic melatonin mechanism. And turns out my melatonin was releasing at exactly the perfect time. That's my own experience, just to validate. You may know it's time to sleep. You may feel, wow, I'm really ready to go to sleep. That doesn't mean you will be able to sleep. These are two totally different things. So this can really help. But it's not the only thing. Just making sure I have everything. Yeah. So the thing about the stress hormones is that they are much stronger than a melatonin release. You get your cortisol going, you get this epinephrine happening, and it is going to blast over the melatonin, telling you it's time to sleep. Something I wanted to say about that. Okay, I'll come back to it. Okay. So I've just presented the challenges to you. I've sort of outlined what all of the problems are. Now, as I said, there is no sort of quick and easy fix on all of this. But what can be a negative feedback loop, we want to create sort of strategic intervention pillars to begin to create a positive feedback loop. The practices of yoga, breathwork, meditation, other contemplative practices. If you're not a fan of yoga, breathwork, and meditation, some people love creating artwork or nature exposure, or creating music, or whatever it is that allows you some forms of stress relief. These can start to interrupt this cycle of the stress hormones releasing. When I teach yoga for stress management as a credit course at Stanford, the third week, their assignment is to create a morning routine for themselves. And this just last week, they were sort of sharing this, and I could see every time I teach this, they're like really confused. They're like, this is a class for credit. You're asking me to create a morning routine. What I share with them is that I believe that both sleep and stress are a momentum game. There's a lot of other things involved, but so much of it is momentum. And if you wait to do any kind of stress reducing activity until the end of the day right before sleep, you've had a day's worth of stress building up as a wave crashing on you. It can be almost impossible to push it back. So while again, there's no quick fix, what we can do is find moments in the day where you interrupt the buildup of that stress. We call it an intervention. So I'm a huge favor of having some sort of a morning practice, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe getting up a few minutes earlier so that you are not rushed in the morning. A lot of us sort of push it to the last minute, and we're so rushed to get to work and rushed to get to something that we're already in stress hormones. We've set ourselves up to be in stress hormones all day. So having a morning routine, whatever that is for you, some sort of contemplative practice that allows you to, even if you've had a bad night's sleep, to be able to clear out stress, set an intention for the day, and start the day on your own terms, whether you had a good night's sleep or not. It's really essential. And then also finding other moments throughout the day that you know you can count on. So whether it's an 11 o'clock break, you set an alarm that goes off at 11 a.m. every day as a moment for 1 or 2 minutes of closing your eyes, calming yourself down. I'm a huge fan of afternoon walks. Just a quick, I want to just make sure I'm on time here. One quick note about circadian rhythm, that is there is a dip in energy that happens mid-afternoon that is essential, and it is part of that circadian rhythm. So you're not just wakeful in the morning and tired at night. If you do sort of a regular day, you're up at like 6, 7 in the morning and you go to sleep at 10 or 11 at night. At around 2 to 3 in the afternoon, you will have a melatonin spike, which equals an energetic drop. And they have done blind studies on that. It is not necessarily connected to having a big lunch. A lot of us go, oh, I'm tired because I had a big lunch type of thing. It's actually going to happen in your body clock, whether you have a big lunch or not. It's just part of the way we're wired. But in that circadian slump, it's really interesting the way that we approach ourselves. We either beat ourselves up for being tired, we try to push through it, we caffeinate, we completely exhaust ourselves. But I invite you to find even a few moments in that mid-afternoon to make it a conscious moment of stress reduction, whatever that looks like for you. So it can be another touch point throughout the day so that the momentum of that stress doesn't build. So that it's, again, not so much by the end of the day that at night it's almost too much to put down. Okay. Oh. The notes are for my students to take notes, but they're also as reminders to me. So I have this reminder that we have this amazing platform called Glow that has yoga and breathwork and meditation practices on it with Elena and with other incredible teachers. We have practices that are 2 minutes long. We have practices that are 90 minutes long and everywhere in between. Um, so it's great to find something that you can just do on your own. But very often we're like, well, I don't even know what to do. There's so many things. And then we can get stressed out about not knowing which stress reduction technique to do. So if in doubt, um, you've got a friend here with Glow with almost anything that you could possibly need. Um, a little bit on the limitations of these quick fixes. One thing I want to point out, again, I'm mostly these days teaching these undergraduates who are brilliant, and they're all overachievers. And when I try to teach them a meditation technique, um, they've got a real sense of success and failure with them. And if they're not amazing at it right away, they feel like a failure. They're not good at it, and they just toss it out. Oh, I can't meditate. I can't watch my breath. My mind is all over the place. Um, just want to remind any of you who might want to be trying any of these techniques. Nobody in any of the ancient teachings ever said when you first sit down to meditate, you're going to feel really relaxed and your stress is going to go away. The teachings don't claim to do that. Um, they take a lot of time and practice before they start to feel good. In fact, at first, they can be really challenging. But just the sort of example that's like the ubiquitous example that's used is if you wanted to learn how to play the guitar and make music, when you pick up the guitar, it's going to sound terrible at first. You have to practice it before it's something that works. So if you're trying a stress reduction technique and it's making you more stressed out because you're only seeing how stressed you are, please know that that's also normal. Don't let that stress you out. And just try to find one that feels like you could bite into it and stick with it and chew for a little bit. Um, I could say more on that later, but I want to get through all of this on time. Um, One of the things I find really frustrating as a person who has struggled with sleep for a lifetime is when we see something that says, "Oh, do this, breathing technique for 4 seconds, and you're going to fall asleep like that." And I feel like the people who say these things have never had trouble sleeping, because not only do these things often not work, it can then create a lot of self doubt in the mind of the person who's trying to sleep. So I want for any of you who have heard any of this and have tried it and then it hasn't worked and it's created more confusion and overwhelm, I just want to send some empathy your way. Um, Quick fixes usually don't work, but what does work are dedicated practices that can start to create strategic interventions for you. Um, One thing now I want to go back a second. Um, Before I move on, I want to do a very short practice. But before I do, I want to, uh, there are no published, I try to stay pretty current on the literature to my knowledge as of at least maybe a month ago. There are no published studies that isolate one technique over time with an outcome like box breathing. If you do only box breathing for 30 days straight, this is going to help you do X and Y. And even if there were, I would have doubts about it because of all of the varieties of just variables that would not make that. How can I explain this? The teachings were not created to be outcome based. a breathing technique, a meditation technique. It wasn't designed to be like medicalized, like do this, and you'll get this. The practices were created as a lifestyle and a lifetime endeavor to have an experience. Yoga is a holistic experience. Yoga is a lifestyle. So if you're trying one isolated technique and somebody promised you that one thing will give you this, it might. If it does, great. But if it doesn't do that for you, I just want to keep in mind that the practices weren't created to do that. This to me is not a disappointment. To me, this is encouraging, because this is sort of a very Western concept of like, I buy this and I get this. If I do this practice, I want this, like a return on our investment. And we know life just doesn't really work that way. And contemplative practice doesn't really work that way. However, it can be effective if we commit to creating, again, strategic intervention points throughout the day so that that stress is not as overwhelming when it's time to go to sleep. Okay, so what I'd like to do is a very short practice. And then we'll open it up to questions. Many of you have learned many different breathing techniques. They can all be wonderful in many ways. But I'd say the biggest thing that I've noticed in my students over the years in teaching breath work or even physical yoga or meditation is that the approach to the breath work, it's very hungry and ambitious. So if there's even like an ujjayi breath, there can be a lot of gasping, or even if there's a held breath and a long exhale, it can be like like this. And in that ambition, the breath gets choppy and jumpy. And that choppy and jumpy on the breath can actually ignite our stress hormones. Even when we're trying to reduce stress, if the breath explodes or is really all over the place, that all over the place breath pattern sends signals to our stress hormones. So what we're going to do is just a few moments of what I call smooth breathing. So please go ahead and close your eyes, close your mouth, and bring your awareness to your breath moving in and out through your nostrils. And now, in many meditation and mindfulness practices, we don't change the breath at all. We simply observe the inherent intelligence of the breath, allowing it its own pattern. But for right now, I'd like you to consciously try to smooth the breath out. So if it's choppy or jumpy, or if you gulp or spit, now this will take some effort, but use a concerted effort, or just for about another minute, where the breath becomes so smooth that if I were sitting next to you, I might not hear it at all. And I might not know when you are inhaling or when you are exhaling, or when that changed. And now release the efforting and allow the breath to find its own natural rhythm. Okay. And when you're ready, you can allow the eyes to open. And I will stop my screen share. Thank you all.
I just want to say, if I may, when sitting in a Zen context, meditating in Zazen, I wish I would have you to offer this to everyone sitting in the Zendo. The silence of the breath is one of the most important and truly inspiring aspects of sitting in Zazen in a Zen center with other people, because there's not a sound. And in that silence, all of the self-referentiality gets lost, just drops, whether it's moments or minutes at a time. And it's very hard to do that when there is breathing sound in the room. So thank you for that. The way that you offered that was really very helpful to me. So thank you. I'd love to see if there are any questions at all. I'd love to follow up on the adenosine factor as well, if we could.
Um, okay, somebody just wrote in, but I'm going to speak on adenosine because I'm obsessed with adenosine. um, I found myself at one point, the lectures at the university sometimes are almost 3 hour lectures. And at one point I realized I had talked for 90 minutes straight about adenosine. I was like, stop. Um, okay. So I talked about the moment that we wake up and our eyes open, and that sets the clock for melatonin. It's also the moment that the clock is set for adenosine. Adenosine exists in our whole body, everywhere. And the moment we wake, it leaves the body and starts to be deposited in an area called the basal forebrain. And it's deposited, 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 deposited. And this is building up what's called sleep pressure, sleep drive. What's fascinating is there is nothing that affects this buildup of adenosine. I'm going to do the interpretive dance with my hand for a moment. It is a straight upward trajectory. Like with melatonin, you can, oh, you didn't have light or whatever, it can get all messed up. Adenosine, there's no messing it up. It is a straight trajectory, boom, all day long, straight like this. The only thing that will stop it is the adenosine receptor agonist, which is caffeine. And caffeine, adenosine receptor agonist, not only does it increase your blood pressure and your heart rate, etc., but it basically creates a little seal on the basal forebrain, and it won't let the adenosine get in. It blocks it, which is why when the caffeine wears off, you have that crash because it all goes whoosh, like this. The other thing that blocks adenosine and sleep pressure is taking a nap. So if you're going to take a nap, I recommend that you take it much earlier. So there's time for the adenosine to build back up, and also keep the nap really short. You don't want to nap for more than about half an hour. A NASA nap, the astronauts, I think it's 26 minutes, something like this. Um, I'm fascinated by this because the melatonin signaling us it's time to sleep is not the thing that's really going to necessarily help us fall asleep. And also, it's not what keeps us asleep and creates that sleep pressure. The other thing I just want to, I know here I am going off on adenosine. Last thing is that when you sleep, the moment you fall asleep, it's like a pressure gauge goes like this. The adenosine starts to out of the brain and go back into the body. And it is mostly dissipated within about 4 to 5 hours, which is one of the many reasons why some of you fall asleep okay, and then middle of the night wake up and can't get back because that adenosine is gone. Okay, there's a bunch of questions. You can see I'm really into adenosine.
This is so great. And I think that there's probably another 3 hour lecture that we could talk about the tie-in between adenosine and progesterone, but that's for another day.
Let's
We
do
have
it.
questions. Um, would you practice this before going to bed as a way to calm? And the answer is a big, resounding yes. The way that Sarah very expertly just taught, the smoothing, think about it like this, the smoothing of the pathway between the inhalation to the exhalation, that it's not even audible to oneself. And the smoothing subsequently of the exhalation to the inhalation. That is such a nice way to fall asleep. And it's also a wonderful way for me to fall back asleep if I wake up in the middle of the night. I will actually place, just in case this is relevant, I'll place Reiki hands on my body. I've taught my college kid to do that too. And a hand on the heart and a hand on the belly. And take about 5 to 10 breaths where you can't hear, you don't even know that there's a break between the inhalation and the exhalation, but it's all happening. And it's all one event. Really helps me. So that was Mia's question. Thank you for that great question. Linda's asking, have you heard anything about putting something cold on your forehead making you sleepy, Sarah?
Yeah, so I'm also obsessed with cold. um, Many of you have heard about stages of sleep. Um, and especially in stage 2 of sleep, the body temperature needs to drop. It has to drop, and it drops dramatically. And if the body is kept warm, that can be one of the reasons why you sort of hover in this, oh, I'm almost asleep, but I'm not getting a deep sleep. Picture like a warm summer night where people are like, I don't know, I kind of fell asleep, but I don't feel like I really got in. And part of that is that the body temperature does need to drop. Um, when we put cold on our head, it's a vasoconstrictor, right? Cold is a vasoconstrictor. And so if you're putting cold on the head, the blood vessels in the brain are constricting and the blood is going into the body. It's almost the same thing. It's almost the same mechanism as getting into a hot bath. A hot bath is a vasodilator, brings all the blood into the body and away from the brain. So you have a mushy brain. So people jump into an ice bath in the mornings because then it's a vasoconstrictor on your body and it sort of shoots all the blood to the brain and wakes you up. So I happen to be a huge fan of that. But I also want to say that it's helpful if it is helpful to you. For some people, if that cold gives you anxiety, then you can also try something else.
And then Flora is often finding herself waking up and feeling very anxious, sweaty palms and feet. Any suggestions to help work with that, please?
Waking up in the middle of the night or in the morning waking up?
I'll wait
Oh,
for
sorry.
Flora to answer, but I
Okay.
think it looks like waking up feeling very
In the
anxious.
morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be anxious about these days. So I just want to validate that. There's a lot going on. Um, People that I know who are very empathetic are feeling a lot of it. So I don't want to make that a bad thing. I think it's wonderful that you're feeling what's going on. And yet, when it's too much, then it's not serving you. Um, and so I think the waking up sweaty could be that you have too much bedding on at night. That's creating too much heat under the covers. A lot of people will make the room cold, but they'll wrap themselves in like a duvet cover or something like this, or socks or sweatpants. So the sweating could be from that, but it could also simply be from the stress and anxiety. And I just, I don't want to I don't want to sort of dismiss it, but finding a morning practice. Um, for me, the alarm goes off and I have my mala by my bed and I try to do something before I start to even process thoughts. Um, I have a mala and I have a mantra from my guru. I find that to be really helpful. But I would encourage you to spend maybe the next couple of months trying different practices that feel right to you, that you could do the moment you wake to start to create a new pattern of that waking moment.
We have a lot of great questions here. Thank you for that. So Elizabeth is took a Dutch test years ago. Elizabeth, I want to encourage you to just take another one and see. According to the Dutch test, her body's making. I just took it like Friday, so it's so annoying. But I'm so happy that I did it just to find out where I'm at. Body makes almost zero melatonin for Elizabeth, so she's taking supplemental melatonin during the day. We are not doctors, obviously, but I am curious to hear, Sarah, what you know about this, if anything has been unearthed.
Yeah, I don't know that much about it, and I'm not a medical doctor. But I do, I very much, when you get a panel like that, I think it's really, we're so lucky to live in a time where we have this technology available to us. I encourage you to take these supplements. If your doctor prescribed a certain brand, that you should go with that. The problem with melatonin supplements is they're not FDA regulated, so it's very unclear. There really isn't any accountability of how much melatonin. It might say 5 milligrams, but if you go to 20 different companies, you're going to have 20 different amounts that are not necessarily 5 milligrams. So that might be something to look into. And then also, melatonin is very much sunlight, connected to sunlight. Um, and if you don't have, not everybody has the ability to have sunlight exposure during the day. You may not have a day that allows you that um, luxury. But they do have some lights that you can get and have inside that will sort of mimic sunlight to help set circadian rhythm, and with that. So, and if you want to send me an email, I'm happy to do a little research for you about that.
I also want to add too that at nighttime, a couple of things have really helped me just for nighttime. Doing things like sewing and reading an actual book. I just stayed at a friend's house who has red light bulbs throughout the house, and they have it on a panel, which I don't love for the EMFs, but around this time they actually turn all the yellow light bulbs off, and the whole house is red. And by 8 o'clock, I stayed there 4 nights. My aura ring was going off. Like, what are you doing? Keep doing this. Because by 8 o'clock, when the lights were red, I couldn't do anything. I didn't want to open my computer. I didn't even want to read. I just got in bed and put my hands on my body and did that breathing, and that was it. So, yeah, take another Dutch test. That's what I would do, Elizabeth, if I were you. And find out from your doctor if it is okay to take melatonin long term. That's a really important question. Cami is asking any thoughts on exercise at night. I do have some thoughts about this personally, but I'd love to hear from you, Sarah. Her classes are late. They end sometimes at 8:30, ballet, contemporary dance. They're very energizing. Of course, according to Cami, she's wondering if this might be impacting her sleep or not. And I have a question for you, Cami, for both of us, which is, Is your sleep impacted on those nights? Do a little N of one experiment and see, okay, how's my sleep? You're going to really do the same things otherwise with the light that, even light a candle. Do your whole, sleep ritual. I have a thing that I rub my feet down with essential oils and a little bit of moisturizer. I will put a light sock on. Like, I have a whole thing. I love it. Do that and test it out, Cami. That's what I would say. Sarah, any thoughts on that?
I'm really glad you walked her through isolating the variable. It's important, super important to do that.
I love
You
that.
know, I've always, there's a lot sort of out there in the media about not exercising late and all of what it does to you. But I'm
Mhm.
working with undergraduates, and I have to tell you, they are all at the gym at crazy hours at night, and they love it. They say that it tires them out. It's their way of releasing the stress of the day.
Yep.
So I think it's very personal. It
I think so.
really, I don't think that that's an exact science. I
No,
think,
and
yeah.
I actually at times am doing weight training at night after dinner, mostly for, glucose control, and then I get really tired. It's so delightful. I just get right in bed and I'm done, you know. So just something to also play with and think about. Neil had a question. In light of your remarks, Sarah, focus on regular schedules during the daylight. He's welcoming your comments on how these ideas impact those who work shift work, nights, irregular schedules, etc. I was married to a doctor. We're still great friends. My son's father, he was a night shift, and it was really something. Really impacted all of us. I'm curious to hear what you know about this, Sarah, and what you would offer Neil.
I know quite a bit about it, and most of it's not great news. Um, However, if there's a way that you can work towards um, the shifts of regular hours over the years, if there's a way that you can work towards it, I encourage you to do that. Um, that said, um, people who are working night shifts are often also sort of dismissing the need to get a really long sleep. So if you come home at 7:30 in the morning, usually they only sleep for maybe 5, 6 hours till 12 or 1, something like that. If there's a way that you can structure your day to allow you more time for sleep, I encourage you to do that. Definitely try to get yourself into a darkened room to create like a false evening for the hours before you'll go to sleep. Maybe even sort of wear some sort of a something, some sort of a sunglasses. If you're leaving where you were working in the morning and there's a rising sun, it's going to signal your body time to wake up. So if there's a way to maybe wear some sunglasses or something like that in that commute time, um, and then also to just really, really be protective and to find structured time for you to sleep.
One interesting thought also, Neil, I traveled to Japan a couple times and I used this app called Time Shifter. Very interesting, where they give you for the 3 days prior, 72 hours prior to travel, they start to shift you out of your schedule and into the schedule of the place where you're going. So, to Sarah's point, sunglasses, taking a little melatonin. They tell you no more caffeine after this hour, and it's like 9 a.m., and you're like, oh my God, missed the window. And it was very helpful. I did not struggle. I did not suffer on either west or east. It was very interesting. We're going to Julie's question. Please talk about staying asleep. Breath helps, Elena. What about the routine waking up at 3 a.m., especially menopause and post menopause? I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that. Sarah and I also have some information.
Yeah, I have a lot to say. I'll try to keep it short.
Yeah.
So, the dissipation of adenosine is one of the primary reasons why sleep becomes lighter towards the end of the night. The adenosine, which keeps you asleep and not sensitive to external stimuli, which might wake you up, sights, sounds, sensations, is no longer there. So you are more sensitive to those external sensors. The other thing, sort of the most easy common one, is that very often people wake up to use a restroom in the middle of the night and then have difficulty getting back to bed. If you do need to get up to use a restroom, I encourage you to just have like a very, very low nightlight. Um, I almost keep my eyes almost closed for the if I need to go, so the light does not. The moment the light goes in, it's telling you it's time to wake up. So if you're going to use it, keep the light low. Also, very much recommend just walking back your like liquid consumption time. So I usually don't drink much after about 7 or 8 p.m. I like power hydrate in the morning, but by around 7 to 8 p.m. I don't drink much, and it doesn't wake me up. But there's two other points I want to make that are not kind of readily available in the media. One of them is this idea of the hot and cold. Um, I've been working with people for sleep for a long time, and almost always when someone says, I can't stay asleep, I say, do you wake up hot, throw the covers off like this, and then fall back to sleep? And then an hour later, you're freezing cold and you bring it back on, hot and cold and hot and cold and hot and cold. This is the case for many people. And again, as I said, what happens is there's a cold room, but we bundle ourselves in these Arctic blankets, and within an hour or two, those blankets have done the job and they create heat. If our skin feels heat at night, again, it signals us to wake up in a panic because it thinks that there is a fire nearby and you have to run the cave tribe to safety or something like this. So you won't just wake up normal. If you wake up with that kind of heat on your skin, you wake up in a panic. Um, so what's not fun at all is now I have a very thin blanket and I have a yummy duvet that I put on top because I like to cozy up with my book and I like to cuddle in and like do my little nighttime rituals. But the moment that I'm about to fall asleep, I put my earplugs in. I've been sleeping with earplugs since I was 18, and I grab that expensive duvet and I chuck it on the floor and I roll over and I sleep with a thin blanket and I have no more hot and cold things. One last thing I want to say about waking up frequently at night, and that is that you've all heard about sleep cycles, but sleep cycles are 90 minutes long. And what you may not know is we've all heard of REM sleep. But when you start a sleep cycle, you're in light sleep and you go into stage two and then deep sleep and then REM sleep. After 90 minutes, you're back up at the top, and another 90 minutes, you're back up at the top. So every 90 minutes, you're in light sleep again. So if you're waking up and you can't get back, you might just simply be in between a sleep cycle and telling yourself not to panic about it. Turn the pillow over, find a comfortable spot, and just hit the next round down. These are a couple of possibilities.
I also wanted to mention too that caffeine timing is a thing. And some of us are more sensitive, and 8 to 10 hours is kind of the half life of caffeine. So be respectful of that. I actually have a little alarm on my phone that says, like, really try not to have any caffeine after now every day so that I know. The other thing is alcohol. Wow, even one drink. Sarah, I'd love for you to speak to this.
Yes, so I'd love to explain that. I know we're so basically alcohol is it's a depressant. It relaxes us, which is why we like it. But physiologically, when it relaxes all of that in the brain, there is a repercussive bounce that happens. The epinephrine, norepinephrine, all the stress hormones have a repercussive bounce once the alcohol has been digested. So if you have a drink in the evening and all of a sudden you're waking up in a panic at around 4 o'clock in the morning, going, "What's wrong with me? Why am I waking up in a panic?" this might be one of the reasons, is that it takes that long to digest, that long to leave your body, but then that which calms down, it boing, it bounces back. Not to, by the way, I never like to shame anybody for any substances. You do what you like, but it's just nice to know what these things might do so that you can make strategic choices.
100%. Any thoughts on stress and oversleep? Are there similarities between approaches for coping with that and the ones you discussed previously for struggling with sleep? That's from Ingrid.
Yeah. Um, Oversleep is complicated. It very often is a correlation with some other, it's got some other health issue happening. Most common, people who are oversleeping have some sort of mild sleep apnea, some sort of breathing disruption during their sleep that is causing them to sleep longer. And even after 10, 11 hours, they wake up and they don't feel rested. Sleep apnea interrupts the sleep cycle. So when we go through our cycles throughout the night, our REM sleep progresses exponentially throughout the night. So the first sleep cycle, you get maybe 10 minutes of REM, the next one, maybe 20 minutes of REM. And by the end of the night, you're getting the most REM. It's the best sleep of the night. People with sleep apnea, it interrupts the progression of REM. So they always starting back at the breathing disrupts and they start back at the beginning. So they could sleep for 10 hours, but they're never getting the REM that they need. So if somebody's sleeping that long, the first thing I would say is to they now have at home sleep tests for sleep apnea. That'd be the first thing I'd rule out.
There's also, for those of you on Glow, and to Lisa's question, thank you for your question. I did a while back, last year, a really beautiful series of meditations that are specifically for sleep. And there is one, to your question, Lisa, that is geared toward listening when you wake up in the middle of the night. And I think you might really love that. And I'm hopeful that that serves you. Please do let us know if it does. Um, Flora is talking about in the morning. We got that already. Neil, diffusing essential oils. Personally, there have been some studies, science done on diffusing essential oils in the night. The one caveat I would say, Neil, is sometimes the diffuser makes too much noise. I swear, I've begun, and I have to use a humidifier because we're in the desert here in northern New Mexico. I have silicone earplugs, and I use them every night. And all I can hear is the oceanic sound of my own
Mm,
breath. And I sleep very well now,
mm,
according to my ring. Um, so the diffuser, lavender, frankincense, vetiver, spikenard, bergamot. These are all really, really good for sleeping. Um, any other questions like that, I'm happy to answer offline. You can just email me info@elenabrower.com, and I'm more than happy to help. I'm the only person who answers my email. Cami, also perimenopause sleep issues, so definitely do blood work. Do a Dutch test now while you're peri. Do some blood work, get your levels, and see about progesterone. That's a very popular topic in the media. That progesterone can really help in this moment of time with your sleep. Um, Adjusting as quickly as possible for Ayaka. Stick with Time Shifter. I think you'll be really impressed with the
mm.
level of what they're delivering there on that app. If you have time, could you quickly please speak on sleep inertia on waking? Does it have a link with melatonin levels from Sally?
Yes, I could. I'm raising my hand like I'm in class. Um, Again, it. I believe you're talking about sleep paralysis when you say sleep inertia upon waking. It's not to do with melatonin. I'm forgetting the. Let me explain to you what's happening, and maybe the name of it is going to come to me. Um, So when we go into REM sleep, which we all learned about in high school science, this is when we dream, and a lot of important restorative things happen to the body. But during most of our dreaming is happening in REM, and while we are dreaming, there is it's a it's a paralysis hormone that's released into the body so that we don't act out our dreams because of course they feel real. um, so if we're dreaming that we're flying, or I often dream, so I used to be a swimmer, so I'd be dreaming that I'm swimming, and I really feel like I'm swimming, I'm not doing this in the bed, right? So isn't the body so incredible? So it releases a paralyzing, I'm going to remember it, of course, the moment we get off this call. It was on all of my tests. Um, and so it's released in the body only during dreams. And the reason why in the morning this can happen is, as I said, most of REM happens in the morning. Most of dreaming happens in the morning. So most of this paralysis hormone in the body is happening in the morning. So often what happens is your alarm goes off and your brain wakes up like this. You're out of your dream, but there is still residual of the paralysis left in your body. A couple of things to keep in mind. First thing, if you start to panic, remind yourself that it is not a full paralysis. And you know this because you are still breathing. If it were 100% paralysis, you would not be able to breathe. And you are able to breathe. So remind yourself that, and then go into breath awareness. Stay with the breath, and then usually within a few moments, it's flushed out of the body. Very scary for people.
GABA, glycine, acetylcholine. Is that the
That's
one?
not the that's not the thing that creates the.
Okay. Okay.
I'll send it. I think we send a an email, like a thank you email, to people who came, and I'll make sure to
Perfect.
put it in that.
Perfect. And we are at the end of our questions. We're at 15 minutes over. We are still having 63 people on. It is just a testament to your scholarship and also to the importance of this topic. So
That's
thank you
it.
so much. Let's definitely follow up. I have a couple things that I want to share.
Please.
Number one is the Helite Nightlight.
Ooh.
This is a great product. I'm getting them. They sent me two because I affiliate with them for their Helite, which is like a little about this big, and I just click a button and I let it shine on the ceiling of my bedroom at
Oh,
night. It goes off after 20 minutes. It's very good. The night
beautiful.
lights are just little things that they plug into. I'm going to show you guys. They plug into the wall, and then they light
This
up
is
red.
essential for staying asleep. It's so important.
That's a nice one to
Ooh,
have. Like, yeah,
beautiful.
it's beautiful. You could have it in your bathroom. I have one in my bathroom and one in the kitchen
I
for
love that they're
James,
red.
who wakes up in the night and can't fall back asleep. And I'm thinking that he has actually sleep apnea. I have to go talk to him about this right now. I'm pretty sure that's
Oh,
what's true.
I can I can talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah, the Helite, Helight, great. And if you want to share it in the post email, I can give you a code. I think we get some like sort of discount with them.
That would be great.
Yeah. I think that's it. No other questions. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Sarah, what a
Oh,
pleasure.
let's
I
just
learned so much.
Elena, thank you so much for taking your time for this. That was really generous of you and really wonderful to share space.
Selfish of me, I assure you. March
Um,
10th, we have Amy Apoliti, who's our shared friend. Amy is the one who's responsible for introducing us back in the day. She's still one of our best friends, both of us. And she's just incredible when it comes to nutrition and women's health. Amy is almost 60 and she looks like she's 40. Come and join her. She's amazing, and I think you'll enjoy. And thank you to those of you who are commenting and who were here. Thank you very, very much for your time today. Thank you. Bye, everyone.